Now I've got this nice 1965 ARIENS snowblower here. And these were made very well, very different than today. There's parts in here. Many of you guys know how these things were built like tanks. And for those of you that don't know, stick with me on this one while I tell the story of bringing this thing back to life. Needed a whole bunch of work, but the thing is with these old machines, I mean, this thing is as old as me, and I'm old. So, you know, it's in better shape in a lot of ways, and cosmetically, it is a little prettier than I am. So stick with me, fellas. I think those of you that even know, you still may be interested to see kind of how beefy everything is made, and it just harkens back to a time when, what can I say, you know, it just feels good. A guy sometimes has just got to appreciate certain things. All right, let's get started. Look at this thing. It's awesome, right? Look at how cool this is. I think Mikey set me up with this one. Thanks, Mike. That tank is like clean as I can see it so far. There's nothing in it. You're not going to be able to see it. How about, right? I remember these ARIENS did this. Yeah, you had to lean over, and there was no safety. I remember I killed my neighbor's fence, and he got real mad at me because it started climbing up his chain link fence. You have to reach over and you know, disengage. Look at this, right? This gearbox. First of all, everything in here feels tight. I checked it before. That's cast. That's cast iron, right? Look at that. Let's get that cleaned out. Let me pull off the bottom cover, and maybe we'll pull off the belt cover, and then I'll bring it over on the clean line, get it, you know, rinsed off. Yeah, ARIENS. It's an ARIENS. Get it rinsed off, put a little super clean on it, and then we'll bring it in. And it won't be today, it'll be some other day, but this is nice. I'm like, how do you not want this? Like, who's going to tell me, I don't want that arch, it's old, throw it out. No, it doesn't even look like there's any wear on those skids. Look, that's an original skid. How's this one? Not throwing it out. Right, might be useful to, like, you know, kick around. Right, it doesn't even have air in the tires. Look, it doesn't. It's tires that don't need to breathe. There's no wind in them. Right, these are like solid. Throw some chains on it, maybe. This might be nice for like a cleanup, like after you've already, you know, snow blowed and done all that, and like the wind, and it snows a little bit more. And like the next day you come out and like, I'm not gonna pull out my gigantic 826 to just tidy up. This is a nice little broom, right? It's a 2-stage broom. Plus, it's cool. It's prestige, right? It's you know, look at the way it's meant. Look at the handle on this thing. It's like structural girder design. I mean, this is how you make stuff, right? We got to fix this, guys. A guy has just got to appreciate some things. I can tell you the carburetor is probably no good because I reached up underneath there and it's got a mixture jet. You know, main mixture jet adjustment, and it feels like it's locked. Okay, all right, let's play. All right, I'll be back. I know the lighting's not gonna be great, but look at the joy in here. Look at this thing is so over-engineered. What is that? It's one of them cricket things. Oh, it's so. Look at the size of this cricket thing. It's called a spigot. Let me get it out. It might be still alive. It might just be sleeping upside down. All right, the arsenal. Regular super clean in the spray, which, you know, I like to do first after I give it a good wash with a pressure washer. And then I follow it up with this foamy. I'm almost out of that foamy, too. I got to get some more. So the foamy is on, doing its work. I'm going to give it about 20 minutes or so. And whatever, go put up a pot of coffee. You know, even after blowing with the pressure washer, it's just like cooked on, aged on grease. Scrub-a-dub-dub. 3 men in a tub. But you could see the difference, right? Little ARIENS. She's starting to look real good. I don't know if you can see that, but it may not focus. Point gap, 20 thousandths. Right? ARIENS Company. Brillion, Wisconsin, USA. Manufactured by Tecumseh Products Company. All right, so we talked about having this thing, like this really heavy-duty transmission up here. Man, that is sweet. Drain valve down, you know, drain bung down here, fill bung here. these things are, it's not a wide can, but it's tall. My daughter gave me the, you see it? The number one dad. Look how heavy this steel is. 20 inch. It's 20 inch, but at 20 inches, these augers, the top of the barrel is 17 inches. So these are like 15, 14 inch or so auger blades, right? Really heavy. And even though it's not that wide, and I said this to one of the other fellows, I think it was you, Rain, you were saying, you know, put a grease fitting, right, in the center. No, even though these are not that wide, in the center is the bolt, but you've got one, two grease fittings. Real bearings in the corners, real bearings in real, not the plastic bearing cases, but the aluminum, nice, you know, bearing cases. Aluminum or alloy, right? Big center rotor in here, right? In the auger here in the center section. That's big. That's as big as that big barrel that I was playing around with the other day. Scraper looks like it's okay. Could be maybe reused. If not, I got another one. I saved one. We can cut one up. Hopefully none of the head bolts break. We're going to do the best we can to save this thing. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, I started taking apart more of the head bolts and stuff. We may have a stuck valve, right? So I'm not getting any compression. And there might be a dead motor. And the carburetor might be dead. So I started taking everything off. I started looking into this, fellas, and it's not good. We got a scored engine. Believe it or not, the head came right off, and the gasket is good. Maybe somebody was in here. I'll get you in and I'll show you, but there's a score in here. So she picked up something. There's no compression. The valves are moving. It is a little bit of a different motor. It has an additional shaft over here. I'll get you in close on that another time. And it's a small pulley arrangement. But what I came up with was, let me see if I can get you to see it. I don't remember where this came from. It was definitely probably out of like a Toro, you know, definitely probably. You know how that is. I think the biggest thing first is let's take the other motor out. Let's see if we can get its pulley off and its pulley systems off, because then we have a drive system. Then we can look at this, and I don't want to disrupt this until we get that far. I think that's the plan. We'll be back. All right, split the case. Real easy to do. There's a nice pivot down here, some big bolts up here, and so we're ready to go. It looks real good in here, see? Look how nice, and, you know, it's a little greasy and everything. I mean, I don't know, maybe we could clean it. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like later on. It snowed earlier, and the hose, I don't think the hose is frozen, right? We need this piece and this belt. See the belt arrangement? This feels a little stuck. This is a nice pulley. So let me see if I can free that up. That looks real good. I'm going to take these belts off and measure them. I measured this half by maybe 31 and a half. I got to dial that size in. And I'll check to see if I may have that. These, I don't think I'm going to have. I've seen something similar to that. They started using these drive belts on a lot of drive systems on lawnmowers. They're thin. Let me get that off. Look at that. That's bad. That's bad. It looks worse in person. Now I'm going to turn it around the other way. That's the other side. It's bad. Bad, bad. All right, let me wipe this up a little bit. It's peeing all over. And then the next step is we'll try to get those pulleys off. Okay, so far so good. All right, we've got the backing plate off, this mounting plate. I managed to pull this pulley off and this little guy as well, right? And I just got to get... This is not locked up, fellas. All right, it needs to be cleaned and oiled, but it's good. This is the bigger plastic gas tank, which is, you know, in a way is kind of nice. We're going to try and bring everything outside today. Things are sort of drying up. The snow's disappearing. It's dirty. I got the pulleys off, guys. So we have pulleys. I looked up the belts. It's about $40 or so in belts. They're still available. Those little ones are still available. I may have at least one of them. I'm trying to lubricate as I go because some of these bolts, this is pretty crusty, musty and crusty. So now we're going to try up there. Now this is why I say don't really like doing it like this because you can snap it, but just go slow. Like just bump it. Nope. Nope. See, this is probably going to break, and which means the motor will be no good. Oh, that one went. See? So the little bit of a vibration. All right, I got a couple more loose. I bolted it to the table. We got to get these two off. Let's see. Yeah, that's the plug wire, which is the boot is missing. And go slow. Yeah, that one's on there. Good. Let's go the other way. All right, that one's going to be our problem child. Let's try this one. Oh, no problem on that one. Okay. All right, I guess so. Wipe it down. Let's just see if we can. This is a light duty banger tool. So sending the message in. If I don't have to heat it, I don't want to, but one more bolt, really. That's the key right here. Try to get it down wherever I can. Let's see. I could use a bigger one, but I don't want to. And get movement. Oh, yeah. Okay, now hold on. Now that we got a bit of movement, we'll come back the other way now. Just a little bit. You probably can't see what I'm doing because this bracket's in the way, fellas. I'm sorry, but yeah. Yeah, I got a little bit of movement. A little bit more. A little bit more. Go back the other way. I can hear it crunchy. We don't want to bork the threads, but this is like a blind style hole for us. We can't get anything in down below. There it goes. You hear it? Yeah, a little bit at a time. It's in there. It's this goop. You have to be careful with these old engines. There we go. This is a head bolt, so we don't want to lose it, I got it. All right, good. Let's take a peek inside. So we'll get this head bolt out. Yeah. Ow. Ow. Yeah. Oh. Nuts? Anybody want any nuts and stuff? Yeah, I know it's a little dark. Yeah, let me lighten it up for you a little bit. Do I have the other battery? So you can see it. See, all the junk is in there. All right, this one I'm very familiar with. I did one of these motors a while back. This still does look like it's going to have points in it. So we have a bunch of points motors, I feel, which is correct. And so we have extra points, which is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this and bring it outside, start setting up for a full cleaning and clean up in here a little bit more. Get rid of all this gack. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll spray the motor white, and then we can work on it, or at least kind of like, I think we're going to have to check this. I definitely feel compression. We may want to check for spark. We're missing a plug end here. So we have to take the flywheel off. Let's get everything cleaned up. We'll see you guys in a bit. All right, fellas, it's cold out, but it's good enough, right? Let me give everything a rinse first, as is customary, and then we're gonna start off with the super clean. So we'll be back in a minute. I want to get started on this because it's cold. Super clean. Get yours now. Available at local stores. There's still a few things we need to clean up, but look how nice that everything came. Blew everything out. Let's put some of my tranny fluid mix in here and spin it over, and we'll check for spark too. All right, let's just spin it a little. There we go. That's good. Now let's check for spark. Now, nothing should be grounded, but am I gonna get it? Am I gonna get it? Because you're never gonna get it. Let's see. Oh yeah. And you guys see that? Hold on. I'm gonna show you. Hold on. Look at that. So I'll zoom in digitally, but now I'll zoom in optically. A lot of people try this, but they run their cameras in automatic, and all it's going to do is amp up the gain on the camera and open up the f-stop. So it doesn't work. You have to be in manual. That's pretty good. I mean, we can still check it, which we should. Hold on. How about, since we got some liquids in there, we'll put a little more liquids in. And let's just do a quick compression test. We gotta, to do a compression test, we should bolt that down a little bit. Hold on. Here. Oh yeah, she got compression. About 25 psi. All right, that's not a lot. That's a little tired. Maybe we need to pull the head off and just clean everything up. Maybe throw a quick hone in it, fellas. We have another gasket, right? Instead of rushing, because I don't want to mount it on there if it's only 25 psi. I'm going to try faster. Let's put a little bit of this in. Because you know what? You could throw a hone in it. If it's got a score, we'll know. But it has some compression. The other one didn't. The other one was a mess. But this is the only one I think I have with the X-Tree shaft on it. I could look. I mean, I'll look again. I think there's like one more. I don't think any of the others have that. But we can look. Yeah, we'll go faster. About 40. All right. Well, let me go take a peek. But this has all of the correct stuff, right, to match what we have. Let me go peek. It looks good. Okay. It's just probably the gasket's not seating right, and the cylinder wall is glazed. And that's just a typical glaze scenario. It's clean. Yeah, it's just glazed. Sorry for the camera work. I'm getting tired. Gasket came off. Gasket's fine. it just needs to be re-crushed. But those bolts were getting so gacked up that you wouldn't even know if they were loose. That just needs to be cleaned. I would clean up the valves. We'll do that. I'm going to run a tap through all of these, get some good bolts together. We'll put them in proper. We'll dump the oil on it in a little bit. Yeah, I think she'll be fine. Let's get this carburetor off. I took this outside and I wire wheeled it. But what we want to do now, let's clean this off a little bit. We're going to do a couple of things. Now, the wire wheel got in there pretty good, but we're not done. See all the gook? It really loosened it up. Yeah, see, she was leaking past the exhaust valve a little bit. It's got gack in it. She's got way too much pitting, and this is locked, so... But have no fear. I just want to make sure all the ports are clean, that we can get to everything. And I want to clean around the valves a little bit more. I'm putting some of this on. Should just let go. It's like my release agent. Okay, let's take... I want to make sure that bolt stays there, that we remember that bolt. We can clean this up too, a little bit more. Now we can get into the ports too. All right, so this is a green Scotch-Brite. And it's more aggressive on this side than this side, but it's not very aggressive. So we're going to take it and go around the valve, all right? And the seat as best we can. And if I can get in there and take a peek, we might want to close the valve down a little bit more. Yeah, I think we got it. Yeah, we might want to close that valve down a little bit more. So that's my goal. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing to the other valve, clean all around there. All right, now let's just move the valve back and forth. There's very little movement. There is some, it's got some wear on it, but not a lot. All right, it shouldn't be a problem. Let's feel this one. Let's feel the intake. Bring it all the way up. Yeah, they're about the same. Let's just clean off the top of the valve. See how nice? See, the thing is with the stones that are like this and a little brake hone as opposed to this, which is really a nice honing tool. It's a KD. There is distance between the little stone and the top of the cylinder wall. That gives me the ability to have like a point of finish. And I can create a 60-degree crosshatch if I go slow. Okay. So first we're just going to put a little bit of material in there. Okay. And now we're going to go slow. All right, let's put a little bit more solution in. And this is removing the glaze and putting a bit of a crosshatch in. There's not a lot of pressure on this, so I'm getting it in there. See how low speed I'm going? Especially with big holes, you go slow. I lowered it even more. Not staying in one spot. All we want to do is polish it up, put a finish on it the rings are going to like. Along with that 60-degree crosshatch. And by crosshatching like this, what will happen is the oil will travel upwards. If you just put a ring on it, right, like a wedding ring, like a band of scratches around the circumference, the oil could not travel upwards. It would, you see that as a barrier, like a wall. All right, now we got to get all this junk out. We'll take a peek. There's a little scratch in there, I see. The motor was picking up something. Now I can see it. Small. There's a little deformity in the cylinder wall. I can see it. She looks good, though. Okay. We could go a little bit more. Let me see if I can get another view. You don't need much, right? You don't want to bell mouth the cylinder wall with the cylinder. Yeah, it's not bad. There's no real ridge or anything. There's just a little bit of a distortion. Let me show you. Now, it's over here. It's in this area here. I'm trying to find a way to get you to see it. I mean, I'll use the other camera if I have to. See it there? It's a little bit of black. All right, that's all. But this crosshatch is beautiful. And the polish is perfect. So just a few more minutes. And that's it. And I'll clean it up. We'll move to the next operation. Try to get down as low as I can. Now this is the compression zone, right? This is where it's making its compression. Trying to get the feel. Yep, that's enough. I dare not go anymore. It's just not worth it. You're not really doing anything without the piston out. Except possibly making things worse. Oh, that looks beautiful. Yeah, that's fine. Not going to try to get that out, that little blemish over there. It's not going to happen. Okay? Tilting it to the side. She looks good. All right, I'm going to clean this up a little bit more with some solvent. Try to get it out of here. She looks good. Look at the top of that piston. Perfect. She looking good. We'll dump the oil later too, hopefully. I'd like to get in here a little bit and clean that out, and we'll clean this. We'll clean this guy here. And blow that out. Okay, get any gook out. Let me find something to run in that. Just to... All right, this is the last hole. And I'll check on any other thread. So we want to make sure that we're able to get a proper torque reading, and you can see how nasty everything was, all those bolts. We got to clean up whatever bolts we have. Try to replace any bolts that are too rusty. We'll do that tomorrow. And we'll blow this out and wipe everything down before I'm ready to paint. At least put primer on. I really want to try to get this on tonight, so we're going to keep working for a while. And the next thing, too, yeah, a lot of junk came out of that one. Okay, so that's done. And the other holes are good, but I like to sometimes run a tap in there. I'll do that. We're going to polish up these shafts a little bit, and we're going to take this guy off, too, in a bit. Oil's out. And that should just come right off, and should be able to bang that flywheel off. That's been rubbing there. Well, we'll see. We'll see what we got when we're done. All right, I got the bolt off here. Let's just give it a couple of whacks with a lead hammer. Gentle. Yep, there it goes. Okay. That's nasty in there, and there's still corn in there. I gotta blow that out. All right, I'm gonna blow that out. Bring it outside real quick and spray it. And see all this gook? All right, we got that key. Don't want to lose that. It shouldn't come up, but we'll go through such points. And we'll clean. Let me clean this real quick with the wire wheel. Just to, just here along that area. Everything else looks like it's okay, but there's gook all behind. We got most of it. And I'm not going to touch the timing or anything. Make sure all that's tight later. And she's looking real good. All right, I blowed it all out. I'm not going to worry about too much about around here because we're going to kind of shoot it again. But I'm just going to get around what I can. I can get the bottom or whatever, a little bit of primer, high heat primer, if it's still good. And then we'll put white on it. It looks really nice though. I mean, look at how clean it is. Right? Got a nice cross hatch in there, which I'll get a closer look with the other camera. Clean this out. Just kind of clean up these areas here, right on the stack. Over here too. Everything should be good to go. All right, it's getting late, but I think I have enough time. So I put the high heat primer on. Not sure which way I'm going to aim the camera, so I've had this for a while. It's supposed to be resisting heat up to 2000. It's a good primer. I didn't get crazy with it, fellas. It just kind of, see how nice the bore looks, by the way? All right, and now I'm just going to grab some of this Krylon epoxy, if it works. And what I did was I also sprayed, like, underneath. Ow, I just slammed my finger. I'm getting tired. Right, so I'll do the same thing. I'll stick it upside down and I'll work it. Oh, look, I can remove. It's actually junk in the way there. I can actually do a little bit of porting and polishing in there. There's a little bit of junk in there. There's a little casting flash I could probably knock down. So I'll paint the bottom, and then later on, if I remember, hopefully I do remember, I can come up and paint the top. We should be good to go. So we got a bunch of things to do. So this is all done. I showed this, I think, the other night, right? We'll come back to that. What we want to do now is work on some peripherals, and that way they can dry. So this is the original pull start cover. However, it does not have the recess in it over here, but it has the tag, and that tag we could probably mount somewhere else as well. Maybe we can take it and mount it on this side. It's in good shape. That's the original. But this one has this reset in here for the starter, electric start. We want to use that because that's the block has it and we have it. This is in good shape. It's still basically the same kind of cover. I'm just going to run a wire wheel over it and clean it up, a little bit of cleaner and acid, get it a little bit cleaner. And then I'll prime it and we'll throw some paint on it. And that'll take a little while to dry, so I'll be doing this as I go. So we'll get it clean first and get some, get it dried off, and then we'll put primer on it. Those things dry pretty quick. It's just cold out today. So we got that. Then we have the two gaskets, which are in very good shape. I think we'll pick, obviously we'll pick the better one. We'll clean these up, just give them a rinse. And we'll take the better one, and then we'll throw a little bit of that high heat primer on it. And I think that'll be more than enough for us. We have the two heads, which are almost identical, except for this one little thing going on here. Not sure why that is, but this is the one from the engine that we're running. I think we'll clean them both up. We're going to flatten them out on that piece of steel that I like to use and check them. And we'll pick the best one, and we'll just keep the other one. So we'll do that. This just needs a quick cleaning, not an issue. I know I have other mufflers. I just don't know if they fit. So we're going to check that, take the best mufflers, and a couple of brackets. Now, there's some different bracketry going on here. So my thought is, let's just kind of grab all the brackets that I need, get them cleaned up. I'm not sure which tank we want to use yet. We have bolts to clean. And I figure we'll do all, let me get all of that cleaned up and get them at least in primer and sort through everything. And then I'll come back later and we'll work on the points and start assembling. And the last thing we'll go find is the carburetor, and we'll clean the air box and paint that, whichever one we fix or take or decide to use. And we'll figure out gas tank then, because we have a couple of gas tank options. All right, so I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, look how clean it looks in there. There's still some rust in here. What I do is I just like to dunk it in my degreaser tank, and then I'll wire wheel it in there, and it cuts the dust down. Well, they were starting to get, a good amount of rust down there. Then I degrease it. Then I hit it with my acid spray that I tell you guys about. Now, if you wanted to, you could try to work that off more. You don't want to sandblast. You don't want to get any junk in there. We're going to lubricate inside here later, all right, before we put it on. And so I let acid sit for a little while, and I just kind of dried it off with a towel and an air gun, and I actually ran in the house because it's so cold and windy. I put it on the heater. And if you wanted to, you could put some of that rust reformer on here. The product that I use does a little bit of that, but we're just going to prime it. Or you can shove some rusty metal primer. Nobody paints the insides of these things, but we're going to, all right? I'm going to cover this sticker over. And the other reason why, too, is I blew it and I left it on the heater because all of this in here, right, captures water. We just need to cover over that one sticker. And maybe we'll find a place for the other stickers later. You know, you can see the oil that I pulled out of that red motor. Sludgy, right? I actually drained it, and then this is the slem in the bottom. That's sludge. That's the stuff that you want to get out of your motor, you know, as best you can rinse it out, and if you let it settle, it'll clean up. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting all the bolts cleaned up now. Although both of these look very good. I'm going to go with this one. Right, so I'm going to put this one to the side, and it's still good. I'm going to put some, you know, just a nice coat of that 2000 degree primer on it. It'll give it a little bit more material, right, for imperfections. Because a lot of these gaskets, that's what they have. They have like a fibrous, powdery material on top. So we're going to go do that. I'm actually waiting for our customer to come. So we're just going to take both of these. This one is a little different. It has a little step here. And this is from the white one. And this is from the orange one. So the block we're working with is the orange block. Let's try this one first. And I'm just going to go back and forth in a few different directions. The idea is to clean up the surface. We're not trying to true it up because we would really need a much bigger pad for that. But, you know, poor man's mill. Give it a scratch. Try to hold it flat. We're going to have to blow this disc out. It's a fairly new disc. All right, let's take a peek. This is like 80 grit. Oh yeah, she's beautiful, right? She's like flat. She's like mint flat. Yep. So what I'll do is I'll stop because there's nothing to do here. Turn it around the other way. These are two different grits. This is finer. This is like 220. I forget what the other one is. So we'll just dress it on here. Just keeping it turned. Yeah, she's beautiful. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And then we'll finish up here. Again, we're not trying to make it super flat or increase the compression. This one might have a little bit more compression because of that step. But the only way to know is I'd have to CC it. And I could do that. I actually have the tool for that. But we're going to go with this one. All right. I think we're basically done. Yeah. That's mint. Right? There's very little hints of warpage, but it's so small as insignificant. All right, we'll be back in a minute. All right, I have been running around like a nut all day trying to get as much done as possible, especially in terms of cleaning and painting, because it's getting late and most likely we won't finish this because we won't get everything done, but I won't have painting to do and cleaning. So we're just going to pop this off. Just a clip. And hopefully you can see it. Right, now we can take this cover off. So what we want to do is turn it. Yeah, since we have tape on this, we can turn it with this guy. All right, so right about here, all right? And I'll walk you through it. Intake. All right, there's an exhaust vent. All right, so intake, sucking fuel in, coming up to fire. That's our compression and fire stroke. And then you'll see, you'll come down for power and there'll be exhaust. All right, so let's back it up. Right here. And I can actually feel it. It starts to come to rest. Now we can come back. Yeah, she's a little dirty too. So she's dirty in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of our tranny fluid on. And we got to blow it out. Put a little bit more in here. You know, just kind of clean it up with some of this stuff. And then take a brush and work it around. And then we'll blow it. This should get it clean enough. Yeah. Yeah, she's filthy. Let me get a rag and I'll blow it. High pressure air this time. That should do it. All right, so once we have this thing turned over and you think you got it like at TDC, you're going to see, now you're probably not going to be able to see it, but I can see it with my magnifying glass. And you're not going to be able to see it. But there is a mark right here. Okay? And that's where you want to put it. And that little mark. And then there's these other marks. See that mark? You should be able to see it. So that's where you want to put it. Then there's these two marks over here. I'm not sure what they're referring to there, but that's a different spot. It'll close. And then I've got a thin, it's a narrower gauge here, 20 thousandths, and it's set perfect. Okay. And it seems fine. Now we want to clean that a little bit, so we can do, it's in good shape, but you can just run that in and out. If you want, you can put a small file in that. I took one out, and sometimes these don't fit. So you have to kind of open the points up a little bit, and you can take your points file or something, and just a little bit. You don't want to, you don't want any junk on it. And that should do it. Okay. We'll check it again, just to scratch it up, get off anything that's in there. Now there was dirt in here. We also put some lubricant in here. Another thing I noticed too is you can see the felt here. This felt here it's not only filthy, but it's leaning over. See all of that? We're going to clean that, and we're going to put it back the opposite way a little bit, and I'm going to re-oil it. I'm going to make sure it's well oiled. So that's filthy. And then also, while I'm here, I'm going to take some of this, right? This is my tranny fluid mix with the fuel. And I'm going to come in around, and I'm going to polish up some of this cam that's here. It's actually pulling out junk. There's a lot of junk on it, and I gotta spin it. Well, while I'm in here, see, it actually turned much darker. And let me see, do you need any more light? I don't think you do. And while I'm in here, I'm going to kind of just clean around everything. Right, and then we're going to blow. I'm going to spin that. We'll do it again. You can see how dirty it got. Maybe we'll finish up a little two-stroke. Yeah, here's some two-stroke. It's not as dirty now. I want to get to the area where the points are. All right, we're going to clean those points too in a minute. Now, we scratched them up, but we can't have any. Let me go put this in. Put that in some lacquer thinner or something. Maybe just a little gasoline is all we need for that, right? We don't want to ruin it. And the other thing too, you can notice there's a little bit of oxidation. We're going to have to get a little bit of lubricant on that too. All right, and let me turn it. Let me spin it. So I want to spin it till it's completely out of the way. And before I do that, let's just check for tight. Because it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's 20 thousandths. It's tight. I just gave it a check. Let me spin it out of the way. There we go. Now I can get to the rest of that cam. Hey, look at all the junk it pulled up. Yeah, let's get a fresh Q-tip. You know, it hasn't been done in a long time. We're going to use our tranny fluid because it's going. You want a little oil on it, but you want like a fine oil. And then I'm going to blow it in a minute, but just kind of clean the whole shaft and get into the groove here. See how dirty? And then I'm just going to follow up with the Q-tip just to kind of dry it off. I don't want any, excess in there. We don't want stuff causing problems. And the last thing we'll do, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow it. Hold your face. That gets off any excess. And then I want to spin it around, open up the points. And we just got to clean those points off a little. Oh, what can I use? We can use anything. You can use a bit of gum out, just a scotch, just a little bit. That's it. Okay, just to get off any oil residue and then blow it. Brake cleaner works better, but that's all. And it'll evaporate. Now the next thing I want to do is, this is the cover. There must have been like a felt or something there, or it could just be like a lacquer, or maybe they use an enamel. I want to clean this off, and I'm going to spray it with clear, okay, and let it dry. And this is a seal here, same thing on that side, all right, and we'll let it dry. And I'm going to clean this, and I'll show you. We'll come back and we'll put this on with it lubricated. Right? On this side, that shiny stuff, there's like a glaze, like almost like a plastic. It's probably some kind of plastic or something that's laid on there with a sticky back. But on top was more sticky. So that's why I say there may have been something on there. But I always get that off. You just kind of, after you kind of rinse it with a little bit of thinner, it'll come off. All right, and then I put my clear coat on it. It's still a little tacky, so we're going to leave that for a few more minutes. I'll close it up in a bit. We're cleaning here, right? So this got rinsed well. There's some gasoline. I wouldn't use anything else because it could damage it. And then I put a little bit of my sauce on it, my tranny sauce, and then, dabbled it. I'm going to put some oil on it now. Let it really soak in. And if usually it's like a drop or two, but generally that's when people are actually taking care of these things. All right, so it's a little bit too much oil. We'll just take a paper towel, tissue something, dabble off whatever's excess. So now we know that cam that drives this point system is working. And we're just going to put this back in. So it was this way, laying like that. We're going to put it the other way, right? We'll try to get it to stay on that cam because you want to keep this whole system lubricated and clean. It's a wiper. And we'll try to get it back in again. That's it. Okay? So it's not over-oiled. And then this, right, if you want, when it dries, we could put a little oil on that. It's not quite dry yet, but we can put this down over. It's just a seal. That's all it really is. It should be fine. Let's lift this up all the way. And that's it. Clip it in, and you're done, okay? We already cleaned here. We know we got spark. All right. If you want, you can just check your connection here, make sure it's okay. If you're having a problem with spark, you can take this apart and clean it with a wire wheel. I think that might be a good idea. Not a wire wheel, just a wire brush. I've seen this as a problem before. Hold on, let me find the right tool. 30 seconds. All right. So I've seen this as a problem before. And all you really need to do, it's very clean, but we're just going to take a wire brush and just rock it in there. I've seen this where it just doesn't want to make a good contact because it's just got some schmutz on it. So just check the connections to make sure that they're clean and that the crimps are good, because sometimes these crimps, they don't work. All right, and then there's another crimp here on this. And there's a washer. It's a specialty washer. It's got a cup on it so that it clears the insulator. That's good. And then there's these guys in here. Looks good. Everything there looks good. So we'll put this back. Put a little bit of our training fluid on there. If you want to stop it from having issues, spray it with a little bit of chain wax when you're done. See, there's another connector here. And sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes the wires get loose over here. They just get beat. You might have to rewire it. I actually went through this on another video, and I went through this, and I'll put a link somewhere or a thumbnail or something. Went through a points motor on something. I was going through a bunch of motors. I cleaned them up to do a will it run, and I do a pretty much in depth. The problem was with that video is I could not get spark properly, and it was all in these connectors here. It was like grounding out. Somebody had been in here and tried to make something, and they did a terrible job, and it caused me nothing but grief. So we're all good here. If you want, just put a little bit of oil on that shaft. Just a little bit. Now, I already cleaned this. Okay, so that's all clean. Make sure there's no steel or any pieces of anything sticking to those magnets. And I think what we'll do is we'll spray a little chain wax, actual chain wax in there. I'm gonna go do that. That'll keep this nice and it won't rust again. Just kind of give it a coating. You can use Cosmoline. There's a lot of things you can use. That's all we need. Okay, it's already been cleaned, so we'll go all the way around. Later on, we'll lube the gear before we put the starter motor on. That will dry, and it'll prevent rust. And we'll just put a dollop where I was saying. That's all, and that'll stop any rust there. Let me get the key. What did I do with the key? Here's the key. So to make sure, now this key is very special. It's got a step on it, fellas. See that? That step, oh, we got to take the cover off. I forgot about that. That step has got to go underneath that cover. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. Let me clean this off. All right, you could just dress it on a file so there's no burrs. So in other words, you just lay it on a file and run it back and forth on all sides. All right, see, I can hear it's picking up a little burr. There it goes. All right, just make sure there's no burrs so you won't have any issues putting everything back on. Let me do it down here. Yeah, I can see there's little teeth marks and stuff. Sometimes when people try to get it out, they damage it, they kick up a burr. I can hear it. It has to go underneath. That's, you know, it goes underneath this wafer here, this seal. And you'll see it'll go right underneath it. Yeah, we don't have to take it off. It'll go right underneath it. That's it. And it just kind of lays just underneath it. And I'll probably have to drive this back a little bit more. Yep, that's it. And I can hear it hit bottom. All right, now we can put this back on. Now this is there's a little bit more I could put here. There's two flywheels. I'll show you the other one. Well, this one is geared, and I like these because they're cast and they're heavy. And I don't think the other one has a gear on it. See, right there. Even though it's a low horsepower motor, what'll happen is with more flywheel meat, when you go to engage, that inertia from the weight will allow the motor to slow down so much to stop that from happening. Right, that fits in there like that. It actually fits into like a groove area. And then we can put this guy back on. It's got a special washer, don't lose that. Try to get it started by hand. And there we go. All right, let me tighten it. That's it. Now let's just spin it over and feel it. Now if you want to check spark, yep, we got spark. Man, it's still doing it. Yeah, it's hard to hold. A lot of torque, right? You got to be careful. That's why I don't usually do it with one hand. All right. We can go and do something else. Well, I'll take a look at one of the other motors and see. I don't know, maybe I'm not worried about it just yet. Whatever's going on with this piece here, this is our kill and throttle and all that. I'm not worried about it yet. Now, the other thing I wanted to do while we're kind of here and we can clean everything out before I put intake on or anything else is there's a burr in there. I have ported a lot of heads in my day. And you can pretty much see this casting flash in there. And without digging out my other tool, which is really the professional tool, I think I might be able to do it like this. And just kind of reach in here. And you're not going to see a lot, but you could see that there's a spot there. I have to see it. But we might be able to... Yeah. Want to be real careful. Yeah, she wants to bounce though. She's aggressive. I'd rather do it with the valve out, but we should be okay. Yeah, I think I got it. Yeah, I got it. And then there's another one over here. No porting and polishing, fellas. And there's one up there. That one's going to be tough. Let me see if I can get it another way. Not so much on the exhaust, it's the intake. And then we got to blow it out. Yeah, that might work. Sorry you can't see it. Hold on, I'll be right there. I'm going to show you the next tool we're going to use, but you could see it was pretty serious all around here. We actually removed that whole ridge. Honestly, there's nothing there, but we're going to polish it in a minute, and we're going to use a different style cutting bit. Now I'm just using a cutting bit right now, but we're going to use a cartridge roll similar to this, but smaller. And then we got to blow it out, and I'll rinse it out too a little bit. Normally I do it with electric. It'll wind up going deeper on there in a bit. There we go. See? That gives me a mandrel to work with. And we're just gonna... Yeah, hold on. I don't have it propped up well. Like when I do it on heads and everything, I have fixtures, but we just want to do it quick. Oh yeah, we're getting it. Let me get the exhaust a little. Now, it can't go inside the motor. There's no way for it to get in there. But we do need to wash that well. So I'm going to flood it. Blow it and then flood it with some thinner. Yeah, there's a ridge there. But I got most of it. Alright, let me go this way. Can I get like that? Yeah, that might work. There we go. That's all. Alright, let me blow it. I'm going to take it over by the door, blow it out, and then I'll bring it back up here, and I'm going to flush it good, and then lube it. Be back in a bit. Alright, it's not polished, it's just, and it's not ported, I just relieved a little bit. See? I cleaned it up and got rid of that burr that was in the way, and I flushed it really good. Same thing on both of them. See if I can get you to see in there a little. Now, hold on. It's hard. See? You should be able to see some of it. And then this one. Now, if the valve was out, I could have been more aggressive. And I flushed the heck out of it. And plus, you know, a lot of carbon and gook came out. So, all flushed. Now, just to sweeten it, let's put some of the tranny fluid stuff in there. And then spin it. I might, you know, we may have to take the valves out anyway to bring up the compression a little bit because they may not be sealing as well as we'd like. Even though I did that little magic with the earlier when I cleaned them with the Scotch-Brite pad. Okay, I think we're okay. Now let's bring it up to TDC. Well, we're close. That's close enough. As long as the valves are shut. And we're going to get ready to mount the head. So, one of the next steps they're going to do, I'll be back in a minute, but I'm going to put oil, just a thicker weight oil. You can use assembly lube, but I'm not going to, all right? Just a thick weight oil on all of the screws, I should say bolts, okay, that we're going to be mounting the head down with. And the washers and the spacers, but not the brackets. We're not going to torque it yet. We just got to get a head down and tight, okay? And then we got to figure out what brackets and stuff later on, and that's when we're going to torque it. Be back in a minute. Sorry, fellas, you might hear a little bit of noise. The AC's on. AC. The heat is on. Yeah, I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming about the future. We're almost done for the day. I just want to do a few more things. So this is just some good, you know, oil. It's just a heavyweight oil, like a 2050. There's some extra bolts in here, too. So I'm just going to put... You could dip them into oil too, but you don't need a lot. All right, just want to get it all. This is more just for, I mean, you could use other products. I have other products, but you just need oil, really. We want to make sure the threads, remember, the threads are all clean. I chased all these threads out. I cleaned all these bolts properly. They're all super clean. They're all wire wheeled. And if we feel anything that doesn't feel right, we'll know. All right. So we got a gasket. Now, this got a coat of the high temp primer. And then it got a coat of the high temp silver paint. And they're actually two different compounds. The silver's got a bit of aluminum in it, etc. Now, what you can do is just a very, very light coat, like on your fingers, of oil. The gaskets move a little bit, and you see it. You can actually see scuffing. So we've cleaned everything, and then one more thing we'll do, right, is we'll take some of this thick weight oil and we'll just kind of druse it around and kind of coat the walls a little, because it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a little while before we get it running, a couple of days, whatever, and you got to have a little bit of something in here for startup purposes. All right, let's bring it back up to the top ish. All right, let's get our gasket on. And then we got our head all ready. All right, it's all nice and clean. These should be clean enough. If we feel anything, I got to take it back off. I might want to run something in some of these holes. Just real quick, I didn't really do that. I might go get a brush and some cleaner and just run that in there, because one of the problems you have is the bolts go in and they get gooked up in here. And it feels fine. Just check them. Yeah, there's a little bit of dirt in that though. I could see it. Let me go do that. I'm going to run a brush through these. All right, and a little bit thinner. A little bit of oil on that. Look at how clean it is. Just wipe it with your hands. And then remember, now we're just going to populate it with some bolts. Now that's a bolt from this engine, but I like the idea of the original bolts. And these washers are a little beat up, so I don't know if we have any others. See, they're a little beat up. And that's going to change the torque reading, because you have to push down on that bolt head. So let's see. So that's a better bolt. Let's see if it goes down all the way. It should be correct. It's a little bit longer. Well, that's why I want to find out. So I'm going to start putting all these bolts on. That way, if for some reason I run into an issue. So we just need the 3 here, but these smaller guys, right? Now, some of these get spacers, and we'll know that when we start putting brackets on. We're not even sure what we want to use yet. Let's see. Just to make sure they're flat. Yeah, that's better. Let's make sure they're flat, because they can get cupped. All right, that's good. So I'm going to tighten this up by hand. Don't, like, wrench down on it. I'm going to use my stubby with a deep socket. Yeah, they feel good. I just want to feel them by hand. Yeah, that feels good. Now, you could spin them in with something, but you can't tighten. Right? Like this. And once you know that they're going in fine and you don't feel anything, right? These all feel good. Just lightly. There you go. That's it. Now, just with my stubby, because like I think it's like maybe 20 inch-pounds. These I got to check it, but 15 maybe. So I'm just kind of going short cycling it, you know, keeping it choking up on the wrench. Yeah, that feels good. If you want, we can do it quick before I close it up. If you want, we can do a quick compression test. Yeah, let me tighten it up. And what we'll do is I'll just put it right over here and clamp it. And when you go to torque it, you got to clamp it because you don't want to be hold it. You'll get an erroneous reading. You're jerking on it. That's all. That's all we need. All right, let me just feel it. Yeah, that feels good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, we're golden. And she needs to run, so that's going to change things too. Remember, there's no oil in it, so we really should have some oil in it. Let's find out. Let me do it with both hands. No, that one's not going to do it. Now we got to get the other tool. Oh yeah! Oh, almost 125, fellas. Oh yeah, just under 125. Hey, I know there's not a lot of light. Yeah, you want me to turn the brightness up? Throw the other camera on too. They might see it. Yeah, you're almost at 125. That's not bad. Okay. That's why I say, and if I were to clean the valves and lap them, it'd be even better. Okay, so now, generally speaking, I don't like paint up top because if you put it too thick, it'll affect the cooling. So I might come back over it with a little clear, you know, the high temp clear that I like to use. Don't forget, we're going to have all this stuff on here. But yeah, let's just grab, for now, it's got a little oil on it, but that's okay. And I got a little bit left. Yeah, not much either. And this will stop it from oxidizing. We'll get on the rest of the stuff too. And we also want to put a little bit more of the chain wax on here for now. Right? That'll keep it from rusting and get a little bit on the gears. Because we're about to bury that. Yeah, I said I didn't want to spray anything else because I don't want the stink in here. I know, we got to clean out that nozzle too. And then before we put it on as well, we want to put a little bit of, I guess we'll put white lithium spray lube on it. We'll do that tomorrow. Leave this alone. These bolts should be fine. You clean that out. She looks good. All right. You're not even going to see most of that because it's going to have brackets all over it. So there you go, fellas. So there's proof is in the pudding, but we still got to get it to run, right? We still got to make sure she's running okay. But so far, we have about almost 125 PSI at a relatively low rev. We'll sort out the carburetor and the rest of it tomorrow, but I think we're gonna have a motor that's going to run pretty good. I'll see you guys then. All right, I'm getting a late start. So a couple of things I wanted to mention. And the first thing is you want to put oil in here. There's a couple of spots you can get to. You can actually get to the spring right through here, and I'll go do an overhead in a second. I'll show you. I put oil in, I pull it through a bunch of times, and then I like to finish up with chain lube, not the chain wax. But this is because it's a different formula. It's not going to wax up. It's going to stay more like a gel, and it's a no-sling formula. And then you pull it through, but, you know, wipe it out from the oil, and then you're going to probably need to wipe it one more time, you know, from the chain wax, but it'll somewhat solidify. And remember, this is, you know, wet use, so we want to make sure that the spring is going to have some lube on it. And then I'll show you that a close up again in a minute. Took the bolts off, right? here where the cover's going to go, I put white lube. You can put any lube on here. Spray, lithium. This I brushed on. You can put more chain wax. You can put grease. Just put something on there. And I'll give you a look in a minute. But in here is where you can check your adjustment of the coil to the magnet. And I checked, it's about 15, 16 thousandths. That's a little wide, but that's fine. I'll give you another peek at that in a minute. And then over here, right, now we're not sure what switch assembly we're going to use or what kill, but since it's been painted, you got to clean it. It's got to be polished out because it's going to ground out the ignition. Let me go to the overhead. So just real quick. See, there's a spot in here where you can actually see the spring. You're not going to be able to see because I can't get the camera in that way. But you want, and there's a spring here, and then there's all these pivot points. So you make sure you get that good. And then you can see in here. Now it's a pain in the neck to adjust, but see, right in there, and that's where you can line up the magnets and you can stick your feeler gauge in and feel its clearance. And I'll zoom you in a little bit. Here and there. And then, of course, adjusting it's not going to be easy. I got the cover. Now I got to find all my bolts, right? Make sure they're all clean. And now we should be able to put this on. Now there is another cover that goes on here. Let's just see how everything fits, because remember, we are taking some different parts, although this is the correct cover. It should be the correct cover for this. And it can be a little bit of a pain in the neck getting it on. Let me see where I'm going. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. Let me go find all of our bolts. Now there's a bracket that goes here, but I'm going to try and tighten as I go, and then removing bolts as I need, we figure out what's going on here, because it's been a long time, fellas, since I've done one of these. So, all right, let me go dig out whatever else I want to put on. I think these are the bolts. I know they're pretty big. And put some no-sees on that, and then we'll get the starter motor. We're going to do a quick service on the starter motor, and we'll put that on. Sorry, the heat's on in the background. It's like 5 degrees. I'm just going to put some good weight oil in here, like a 1040 and 30. Let's get it into everything. See, into that Bendix is where you need it. Get it all on there. Right, it's going to be a little sticky. I can see there's a bit of rust on it. And hopefully that'll polish in. Yeah, she's going to be a little sticky, but that oil will help. You can't put grease because it gets cold. But you can put, really want to flood it so that when it spins, it'll piss out a lot of the junk. You can put a little bit of the chain lube, but not the chain wax. No waxes or greases. And that'll keep everything, it'll keep it, here. Keep it from just slinging all over the place. Right now, let's put it upside down. It's gonna puke. And let's see if it works. It should. I just didn't want to run it. Probably checked it a while back, but let's see. Ready? Oh yeah. See it slinging? Yeah, that's good. That's what we want. Oh yeah, it puked. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's nice. Now my concern is that it may not go in. That's my concern, because it'll stay out here and spin, but we're going to test it in a minute. Yeah, it's going in. It's kind of getting stuck a little bit. See? But it'll go. there's really nothing you can do to get it in, you know, anything else. You gotta do this periodically, otherwise you'll lose the Bendix. It's going. Yeah, that's good. And we'll put a little bit more of this on it because it'll help stay. The oil itself is good to get it going, but this will keep it there. It's going to make a bit of a mess. That's why I'm going to puke it down here. Oh, you're making a mess. Listen, fellas, okay? Right? Sometimes in life, you gotta make a mess, right? It's my mess. There we go. Yeah, just exercise it. Hear it? There's also bearings in here that you can get to. They get beat, but we're not going to be using all that much. I have others, but I like to save these. Save me. All right, we'll be back. Let me clean up. All right, so this should be able to stay on. Remember to put this bolt here, because you're not going to be able to get to it if you want to assemble the carburetor this way, right? You don't have to. It's kind of difficult to do, but we need to because we're not sure what setup we're using. So I put a little bit of gasket seal. Let me just give this a cinch. Yeah, let's put it down. Since we either put it down or we can clamp it to the table, but let's just put a little bit extra English on this. There we go. That's tight. Yeah, that's tight. A little bit of gasket cinch on it. This we probably won't be taking off. As I said, we got to figure out what brackets and head and all of that. Hopefully we don't have to take it off again. This we will, because after we get the carburetor, figure out what carburetor we want to use if we have one. We get all the linkages set up. We'll have to take this off to put the fuel line through, and then we can figure out what tank we want. So I'm just putting a little clear on that starter motor. Let me go turn it over to the other side so that when we put the starter motor on, that will live and be permanent, but it'll be protected because that aluminum is going to oxidize. All right, the last year, I worked through 2 of these motors, 2 or 3, I don't remember. And I don't remember exactly. I don't feel like looking at the video, but I wanted to show you this, okay? So this one I put back together again, and it's pretty complete. I think this might have been the one that ran, but maybe not, because this pull cord is broken. It's the mechanism is no good in it. And I think it's a much earlier one, and I wanted to show you, look where the muffler is. The port is not over here, it's over here. And it is a snow motor. So they moved this, maybe this was one of the earlier Tecumseh blocks, because they moved the muffler towards here, kind of loops up over here. They changed the intake and the exhaust. The cam is different, right? Completely different. In the description, I'm going to put a link to info on Tecumseh engines so that you guys can fool around yourselves. All right, so this is the original. This is the original pull starter, you know, blower cover. This tag here came on 60s engines. So right away, we know this is the original motor for this is a 60s. And the designation for model HS40 means it's a horizontal shaft engine, and S is for small frame, right? So 4.0 meaning the horsepower. So our original motor was 4 horsepower. Small frame, and the date most likely would be the first number is 5, so 65. So just a year after I was born. That's how old this thing is. Right, because I'm old. We all know that, Arch. We all know how old you are. No, you don't, fellas. Now you do. All right. So that's just a little bit of a... So this is H35, okay? With a first date number being 445, right? And it's stamped on the top, so that's 70s. So probably 74 and a 3.5 horsepower engine. So this is a little smaller engine, not as desirable. They were down as low as like 2.5 horsepower. All right, I'll get the other engine in a minute. So the one we're working with is a little bit odd because it doesn't have an HS designation. I don't know why. I got to look into it a little bit more. But there's a 1 here, or maybe it wasn't stamped right, but it looks like a 1, and I get 4.3. So it could be a 4.3 horsepower engine, so you know, maybe a little bit more stout of a motor. And then I get, it looks like a 6.9. So it could be 69 or 76. But let me read it again just to make sure, because these things can be confusing. But by the mid 70s, 79 maybe at least, like they were done with points. All right. So I like to keep the old points stuff around because when you have a problem, you have another part to go to. Let me check the other motor. Let me go get the other motor and let me read this again. I don't know why this doesn't have an H. It is a horizontal shaft. It's probably just a little bit bigger motor, which is good. All right, so here's the last of the old vintage, and it has the same kind of head design here where they take the fin and they gouge out a little bit of the fin to make room for the plug. So this is also an H motor. So H motor is they were only in the 60s from what I understand. As far as I know. Again, I'm getting confused at some of this stuff. There's a lot to know. So, and by 70, let me look at the date. Hold on. We'll cut here. So by 76, they were done essentially with points and they would start to make their electronic ignition. And the H motors weren't made after, I think, like 74. Or at least the designation of them, which is probably why the white one is different. We'll get back to that. So this is an H 5.0. This is the bigger one, the biggest one I have. This is similar to the 5.5s and everything that we see around, right, more recently. And its serial starts with a 7. So we could say that this is a 77. But I don't remember if it's got points in it or not. I don't remember. One of these didn't. So it could be a 67 or a 77. You got to look to see what's in here. Okay. This one here is an H3.5 and its serial starts off with a 5. Most likely it's a 65, 1965. Most likely. That's how old these things are. And ours, the one we're working with now, has points. And my guess, it has a 9 for a serialization. So it's a 4.3. It doesn't have an H. It has a 1. So it could be a 4.3 and it could be 69. Okay. Keep in mind, fellas, that they were made different colors. You got white, red, black, Toro designations, Craftsman designations, right? Depending upon what they were on. But you can say for sure that by 74 to 76, right, the phasing out, certainly by 76, the phasing out of electronic ignition. And if the first serial number here is a 7, that's the year, then there's a good chance that it's not going to be 77, sitting by the look of it. It could be if it doesn't have points. So regardless of the H, let's just use that to determine the horsepower. I don't know what the other numbers are on the model number. It seems to be the serial number is really the date and manufacturer is really where you want to look for that. We'll take a peek in this. All right. I remember one of them was electronic ignition, and I got one of them running. I don't remember which, and like I said, I haven't looked. I think the best thing we can do right now is undress it. Let's see if we have a carburetor, and take a deeper look and see. Because right now, all we really care about is parts for what we're doing now, because these are really parts engines. Another reason why we didn't use any of these engines is because we don't have the extra shaft here. Okay, so we need that. That's as per, the frame, the functionality of the machine itself. Same thing with this one. Notice it's got a big hole here. This seems to be a place where you can stick your finger in and turn off the fuel line. I think that's kind of neat, right? So yeah, let's take a look and see what we have. No, by the way, notice how the choke is up here, right? And I think ours was different. Ours was a lever. So the original one is ours. Okay, this is where there's a choke rod. And then it has a throttle control up on the handle. We may want to see if we can restore that. The donor, the first donor, right, has a push prime here and a key switch here. Okay, that's kind of neat. And then the choke is over here on the side. So all of this matters. But we're going to try to do this on the cheap. It's all budget oriented. So let's poke in. Let me take this apart. Okay, this one I pulled out. Now, this is one I ran, I think, for a while. I redid it, and I don't remember what happened with it. Looks like the, obviously the gas tank is missing. I don't remember, but I remember going over this one and fooling around with it for a little bit. We got a good carburetor on it, and it's fully adjustable. So I think we're going to take this carburetor. It should fit. We could also take this, but I may want this for a mini bike that I want to work on. I do have another one of these that's complete, and then I've got one outside. So I'm not sure what I want to do yet. That other carburetor that I took off, right? This one seems like it's okay. It's a knockoff, you know, repop. And it looks like it's the correct size for the smaller engines. We could just do that. This one's adjustable, and it should be still sized okay, even though this is more like a 5.5. So it's a little bit bigger. It might be a little bit bigger carburetor. We'll see when we get it off. The idea, fellas, is to go through everything that I have and at some point get rid of what I don't want, right? I need to start getting rid of some of this stuff. That's why I do a lot of these projects. This is one that used a double belt, but it doesn't have the extra output over here. It's a nice newer motor, probably 70, 90s, somewhere in the 90s or early 2000s, okay? So it's a good motor. I think it feels like it's got compression. Like I said, I probably ran it. So this was the original carburetor. And actually, now that I have it apart, I started cleaning it. It's actually not that bad. It looks worse than it is. It was a bit jammed. I mean, you know, it's crusty. Anyway, I took out a whole choke assembly. Right, and this is an older one. It doesn't have any bore holes. It's like that CLRS2U carburetor that I got, which was, you know, an early model. But I recommended that they start putting that stuff on there because you could use it either way. This is the carburetor I took off of that newer machine, and I just cleaned it up real quick. It has all of the adjustments. This was what was inside the original carburetor. So, yeah, I mean, it might, if it work. I mean, you know. Anyway, what I want to do now, I managed to get it apart. This one I didn't get it apart yet. Well, I'll show you what this is. This is, they call it a primer, but it's not really, but we're going to try and put it on. Let me clean this up. We're just going to give this a nice polish here. Right, just with some Scotch-Brite. Right, it works okay, but it's a little loose. We might be able to just kind of fix that up a little. It's not terrible. That's the idea. That's all we really need to do. That there could use a little tightening. We'll see. Let me think about that. And we got to clean the butterfly a little bit. You can also put a little lacquer thinner on or something. See? That's not bad. You can see how much cleaner it is. And then we'll put it back. I got to get the other butterfly out. And yeah, that thing is like a primer, but I don't know why you would, I don't know how you would hold it in and pull it at the same time, but that's, I wanted to try to put this back, fellas, you know, just to kind of keep some of the originality. And you'll see I redid the cover, and also the way the throttle controller is. That's another thing that I wanted to try to put back. See, what this does is it pushes down and seals off the carburetor. So yeah, you kind of hold it down, and that's how, I don't know how that, I don't think that was ever a good thing, but we have it. Like I said, I cleaned this up pretty good. Yeah, we'll just put the wire wheel brush through this real quick. So, all right, I'll be back. Let me fool around a little bit longer. We're going to get ready to do a test in a little bit, I think. So I'm getting ready to put some oil in. So stand by for that. Almost there. I'll get you on the overhead. All right, so I'm fitting the hose in now. So just to show you a little bit about what's going on, we have the hose to do, we have this to do, and we have to do a kill. And I cleaned this up. I had to rebend it a little bit. It's got a rod that you could bend here. I'm trying to just get like a general overview, so I'll kind of like lean in with the overhead camera, because now I don't feel like using the other camera just to get a close up. Bent this rod a little bit more, bent this rod a little bit more, and the way the control comes from the handle, which is the speed control, right? It connects here. This one connects down here. I just don't have enough cable to do that. Otherwise, I would have used this whole system because this is a little bit more modern. This bolts in with the carburetor. It's more of a pain in the neck. So what you would see is it would grab this thing here, okay, back and forth, and it pulls on this spring down here, and that pulls against the governor, okay, it makes the engine go faster. So, and then there's a kill back this way, and you pull all the way back, and we're probably going to have to tweak that a little bit. I tried to clean it and bend it a little bit, but they changed this, right? They put it all over here. And then, of course, this is some kind of primer, which I don't know what that is, right? We might want to put a primer in here. There's actually room for a primer hose, so maybe we want to spot a primer tube on this and run a primer tube around. I think that's a good idea. Maybe we could look at the one that has that on the cover, so we can have this. I wanted this because I wanted to keep as much of the original design as possible since we're doing it. Let me show you the overhead. Actually, before I do, here, let me show you. So I started working with this. I cleaned this up a little bit, and this goes in like this, like that, something like this, okay, and screws in here. And I think it has one more bolt that you got to put through. We'll have to weld that another day, but into the muffler. And we got to change out one of these guys too, because I have the stud type that'll hold the newer muffler on there. And then this is your choke. So that's choke off, choke on. Again, in keeping with the old design, right? We'll get a closer look at that later. Just try to get, in keeping. It's still a little, it's not tacky, it's just a little soft. I had to get rid of the sticker up here. It was garbage. All right, we're not looking to do like 100% concourse restoration. So let's just take a look, just a peek down this way. So we're working the hose in. I got to get some smaller hose clamps. This is just a smaller fuel line that's good for these Tacumis. The Briggs line is a little too big. And I'll show you here. Let me get you situated. There we go. Now you can see a little bit more. And I got to get a connector in over here. There's a connector back in here what you can't see. And we got to get a push on that. So I'm going to wire that. See? See, these are different. And then there's the spring. There's a red spring. They had different colors for different things. See that? All right, so far so good. All right, let me do the fuel line. And then I'm going to rig up the wiring. So we have to get to the connector here, and then we'll bring a wire down to here, and I'll start my splices here. So we need a ground, and then I need a connector over here. So the connector that comes over here to this thing is a ground. It's at a point of ground, right? We have to supply it with a ground because this is kind of isolated. And when you return all the way back with the throttle rod, you see, this guy was all bent. This guy here, it was all bent bad. I think it's about correct now. It's got a little bit of slop, but you got this little curly cue here that you can adjust to give it the tweak that you need. So we'll test all of that. Let me get out my wiring. Okay, so the green wire down here is at this point, which is the ground of the chassis or the engine itself, connected to here. So it's all nice and clean. I tapped this little bracket. It had a hole. And then I ran this ground wire, and it's just up over to the carburetor over there, right? So that this way the carburetor is grounded. And they had something like that too. And then, by the way, this is moving a little bit, this connector here, so it might leak. And I think I see a bit of a crack. We might be able to pull that off and reseat it with a bit of epoxy. And then this blue wire here comes up to the grounding tang, so that when you pull the throttle all the way back on this, you probably can't see it, but it's up in here. Right? It's up there. It's here. That's a little light. You can see with a little bit of light here. And it's just a grounding tang. Okay, that's insulated. Now, if it doesn't work well, I don't know, you know, what are you going to do? We're going to try to get this to work. And then what I'm thinking is, I might put, instead of putting it on here, like this broken cover is set up, or it's over here, right? Because it'll be in the way over here, right? Because it's going to hit. Sorry, that thing's on. I'm thinking we'll put it here somewhere. Like over here. Now, I don't know why this is up like this, but it's a good spot for it. It should be strong enough once everything is on. Just drill a hole and then we'll plumb it over. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is try to figure out the fuel tank and the exhaust. And then I can put on, you know, we can hold on to that for now. So I'll figure that out, and I'll put the cover on and the push prime, because I think it'd be nice to have a push prime if I ever do use it. It's always easier to start with a push prime. So let's figure out what we want to do with this guy. And I don't know how I want to do this. Does it want to come the other way? This bracket is kind of in the way. We could take it off, but all right, let me go work on that. I probably should use the other head because there's a cut in the fins to allow for the wire. See, they weren't really figuring all this stuff out all that great back then. Let's see, I got another crimp tool here. I want to try to get this crimped on. Yeah, let's see if we can push it in a little bit. So I got another crimp. There's a lot to do in something like this. You know, because you're trying to make stuff work that never was really, well, you're taking from things that are old and you're trying to work something that, you know, isn't up to snuff, and there were changes. Now, I've got this on here. And the problem I have is I don't want to, there's no relief point for it. If I leave it up here, like this isn't, it could hit that, the muffler. So we would want to put something on there. Let's see how it fits on, right? It doesn't have a relief. The only thing I could do is maybe put a nerve here, kick it up, and see. We got to keep it out of the way. That might work, but it's close to the gear, because remember we have a gear here now. So if I come like this, that might work. There's extra fins here that you can't see. Let me see how I want to work this. I'm just going to have to noodle with it, and then wherever I feel comfortable with it. I just don't like it over here because it's going to lay near that muffler and you're going to have a problem. That muffler's going to be the hottest thing here. And as long as I can keep it out of the way of that gear, I'm okay. So that's what we're looking to do. Kind of get it away from the muffler and out of the gear. And on the newer head, there's a cut to the fin over here, which allows you to kind of get in there a bit better. But I can also take this and dimple it, which I think is what I'm going to do. I was taking a look at this head, and just a quick scratch. It's not warp bad, but you could see it. It needed a little here. You probably won't be able to see it because now it's getting bright in here. Right, and this is a shiny thing. I'm going to work a little bit longer and then polish this out. And the reason is because this has the cut in the fin. See? That allows for the spark plug wire. And I think that's important. So I'm going to clean this head up a little bit. And I think we're going to use it because otherwise I'm butchering the top and it's just not clean. This is a better way to route it. Yeah, that looks good. It'll work a little bit longer, then I'll polish it. I know it sounds crazy, but it's clean. Looks good. Okay, I'm going to take this one off. It means I got to drop the muffler again and the carburetor and pull it all out of the way. And then put the head on. And yeah, I'll be back. All right, she's all ready to go. I just need to put a plug in it. I'm going to leave the plug off for now. This may or may not work. Sometimes when the hoses hang down too low and the gas tank gets too low, it just doesn't feed fuel. I didn't tighten these down yet because we got to make sure we've aligned those. So we'll tighten that down. We got to put this on and put the belts on. Didn't put the plug in yet because I want to be able to spin over the motor easy. I got a hole drilled in here so I can get at the idle set. And then, of course, the main jet is down there. We can get at that, no problem. Didn't put the extra screws on yet until I set it into place and I'm comfortable with the way everything goes. I think it's right. So everything else looks good. She's a little dirty, but yeah, good enough. Let's get it on. All right, this belt's a little bit loose, but that's just to test. It might work for now, but I should be able to get another one if everything works good. I just checked it. I managed to put it into neutral. See, up here, all the way down is reverse. I don't know how many gears there are, but up there is your gears. I think I've got it in neutral because it started to back up. I'll show you that in a minute. We got this set up. Let me switch hands. Okay. That's full throttle. And that is off. Okay, and it looks like it's off. We're gonna leave this detached for now. And I think everything is connected properly. Watch. See, it's not moving, so that's good. So we're gonna leave it like this. I did put some lube down in some of those spots, right, that I can't get to. I'm gonna lube it before I'm done at some point today. We're not gonna finish this whole thing. I think we're ready to put gas in it, fellas, and let's see if she drips any fuel. I'll get a plug for it, and we're going to fire it up. It's leaking a little bit, but we haven't tuned it yet. Remember, it's old, so that's an old carburetor too. So let's put the choke on. Right, that choke is off. Choke that way is on. Let's prime it. Yeah, we got moisture in there. It's going to start leaking. Yep, there it goes. So she should start right up. And it should be in neutral, but, you know, we don't know. We don't know anything. So let's see what happens, and we can tune it from here. Trying. Give it a little bit more throttle. Not yet. Trying. Might be a little flooded. All right, I put a different plug in. It was a little wet in there, but nothing crazy. I checked for spark, and we have spark, but I also checked for compression, and the compression's about 50 pounds now. It should run, but you know, we changed the head. We may have to change that back, may have to modify the head so that it can take this plug wire properly. But yeah, that's a significant change. So let's see what happens. Let's put it to full throttle and see if we can get it to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn in the idle curb idle screw, open up the throttle blade. This mechanism is doing something, but it's not opening up the throttle enough. So I'm in about as far as I can go. All right, we still don't have good. Okay, something's wrong with this mechanism here. That's for sure. I'm going to go find out what this RPM is, and when I get a chance I'll bring it back in and we'll try to sort this out. If not, we're going to have to get rid of this whole crazy setup that's on here. But I want to run it a little bit more, so let me go get my RPM gauge and see what RPM we have, and then we'll adjust it so that we have a good break-in RPM. Let's see what we have. Like that. It's missing a linkage. All right, we should be okay, right? She's leaking a little bit, but she's leaking from, it looks like it could be leaking from the O-ring that's on this high-speed adjustment. So I'm glad I put in a fuel shut off, because when we're done, I can fix this at any time. We'll check the bowl gasket. Remember, I'm priming, so it's going to be leaking down over here as well. And we have to kind of deal with that. So the bowl gasket, perhaps the little O-ring that's down on that needle for high-speed RPM. This I had to bend out. I put a rod on it, and what you'll notice is, you can see it, right? We can actually move this here. So when the governor is working against the spring, right? So this is at idle. So what'll happen is the governor will pull it this way, and then we can adjust. This is the curb idle adjustment. I've already tweaked this screw. We can always tweak. This is air adjustment. Air and fuel for idle. And the bottom one is high speed. So we can adjust that again. But what will happen is she'll pull up against the flat of that screw on the other end. You may not see it. But she'll pull flat. And then she'll idle. And then we come up here. Okay. And we go to fast. And what you're going to see is she don't want to move, right? Because she's pulling against that spring full weight, totally, and trying to keep that throttle open. And then the governor arm here will try to force it back to an RPM that's acceptable, which we'll have to adjust in a different way, okay? So let's restart it and see what happens. I have it set to lower RPM. because we don't know what the high RPM is. So let's just see what happens. All right, she's moving, okay? But I think it's going to work. She's trying to move on me. And it seemed to like that. We don't know what the high RPM is going to be, but it seemed to like that, fellas. We're going to have to take it back out. Yeah, she's trying to back up. There's something wrong with the clutch. So I'd say we're okay over here. Let's kick it up, and I want to see what's going on underneath here, because I can't get it in neutral properly. And then we'll bring it outside. All right, we're going to leave it there. All right, so we got 3650, 3620-ish. I'll show you what I did in a minute. I think we're pretty much golden. I'm not going to touch it anymore. She still needs to run and break in. And by the way, that's without the auger running, without pulling snow or anything. You know, this way the governor will deal with it. I think 3600 is what you really want, especially for a smaller engine, fellas. It's a small engine. You could probably bring that down with like an 8 or 10 horsepower if it's an older motor and you don't want to blow it up. I'd say, yeah. We're going to leave it like this. Yeah, you could bring it down to like 35, 34. No more than that, because you won't have enough spin for the impellers and everything. I think that's good. I'm going to show you what I did, and then I want to find out what's going on with the clutch one last time, and then we're going to lube the can up in here a little bit more. I've been putting oil, but now we want to put grease. All right, there's no movement on this rod here, okay? Because I think it's because it's driven all the way down. And then this rod connects up to here on this pivot, right? And then that's what pulls your clutch in, basically. And you can see, even in neutral, there's no room between the top of this disc and that rubber. So we'll put some, and it's also banged up against that. Let's put some lubricant on that. Maybe clean it up a little bit and back it off. All right, good and bad news. It's snapped up here, right? So there's a lot more length to it. Somebody had cranked that nut so far down, not understanding that an adjustment needed to be made it here. And this was bent on such an angle, so that took up a lot. So let me just show you. So now it moves very nicely. It's not a lot of pressure. It's going to probably need a little bit more of adjustment. See, and there's your rocker plate, transfers motion, comes down to here, right? And you can see what it's doing is it's pulling up on that plate. See, that spinner plate, that's your disc. And now I have neutral, so in neutral it goes in either direction, and then when we pull up on it, which I can't show you because I'm using it, but the wheels are now locking, okay? Because that plate is coming up, that clutch disc. So what we need to do now is clean that clutch disc and put some lube in here. I don't know how to get these off. Somebody had told me that if you turn these, it can lock or unlock. I don't know. Maybe we should take a look at that. But we don't have to do everything right now. Let me just put a little bit more lube in here and clean off that clutch disc real quick and clean off a rubber on there and see if we can get some traction on it. All right, I got everything cleaned up and lubricated as best as I can. See? Sorry for the wobbliness. I think that's good for now. I might put a little bit more on that shaft, right in that area there. But everything else is good. All right, I think it's okay. If I have to make an adjustment, we'll make a little bit here. I'm not going to touch it on this one, but I've got lube everywhere we need it. And let's give it a test. And the last thing is I removed these caps over here, both sides. I removed the the cotter pins and the big washers, and I started spraying lube in, because we're going to try to take these off and lubricate. I don't know if I'm going to do it now or today or whenever, but we'll see. We want to get to that. Make sure that they can come off. All right, fellas, let's give it another test. So, the choke is off, but we're going to just prime it. And we're going to go to about midway. I'm going to try and tune it, just to prime, no choke. Hold on, let me turn it on. That's good. 2750. All right, she's running good. Okay, a little too high on the RPMs, and the clutch works fine in reverse. It needs some adjustment going forward. So that shouldn't be a problem. I can adjust that. I'm probably going to bring it back in and take a look at it inside to get the adjustments in there, but we can see she's working good. She starts right up. We're a little too high on RPM, but we now have actual clutch engagement. I can pull on the handle over here. Right, so when I pull on the handle over here, it's just pulling in too far. It needs more adjustment. So now that things are moving, everything is lubricated. I'm getting all the gears, I'm just not getting full engagement. And what I'm going to try doing is, I'll show you when we go in, I'm going to try moving the spring down a little bit. Pull a little less hard on on the governor and all that. And so let's see what happens. So I moved it down to the third hole from the top. All right, that's the spring, and then I put a little bend in the rod here because she was still about 38, 39. I wouldn't change anything else, right? That little bend in the rod just means that there's a little less push on the throttle because she was still a little too high, and I think we're good. It needs a snow test, right? If you go too far, what'll happen is this spring will be too weak. You may have to move it up a little bit and then just deal with bending the rod. If the spring is too weak, if there's not enough tension, when she's under load, she'll bog out. So a new spring or moving it up a notch and then adjusting the rod. And then I also adjusted the idle jet a little bit more and the full RPM jet. So it's pretty close. It needs to run more, and I'm going to leave it here for now. All right, I got this hub off. A little bit worn though. That's a little more than I would like. We may be able to get these bushings. They're in this steel plate, so that's an oil light. We might be able to get that. It's a very common shaft. I may be able to make something. And if I had a lathe, I could do it. This shaft's a little bit worn, maybe. So I want to take this out. I want to polish up this shaft. And then I'll lube it and put that back. This one didn't come right off, but it may not yet. So I want to clean this part of the shaft first. And then we'll see what happens. And worst case is, I'll do it another day, but we can heat this hub and get it off. We'll take the tire off. But not too bad. It's like an actual hub with real lug nuts. Where do you see them? There you go, she's starting to cook. Heat up a little bit more and use the banger. Yeah, she don't want to go yet. That's what happens, they get locked on. That's why you got to take these off periodically. Yeah, let me set up with the banger tool and I'll heat a little bit more and I'll be back. By the way, check these out. They're actually flanged lug nuts. You know, like a car. Especially the old ones. Alright, so I heated it real good and then I doused it with water. I put a bucket of water underneath it and poured water over it to quench it. It did move a little bit, but it's still stuck. I think the best way to deal with something like that is when I'm ready, I have other things to do on this machine, we'll bring it outside, we'll cook it with the oxyacetylene, and then we'll hit it with the hose. And I want to take the back cover back off, and we want to make sure that we don't send too much heat into the rest of the transmission. Probably have to do that a few times. We'll get it off, and, you know, because there's more work to be done, you know, that's when I'll clean the rims and I'll make them nice. All right, so these rims are, yeah, they go in one direction. So that's when I'm going to do that. And I wanted to show you too down here, I'll show you. So we got a little bit of a tear on the barrel here, and it looks like somebody tried to kind of bird crap weld it. So we'll take care of that. And, you know, we'll hit a bunch of other things. You know, we'll get the thing painted up. But that's for another day. Let me finish this thing up and we'll give it a run. All right, that is gear lube. And it's not that bad. It's a little yucky, considering how old it probably is. And we've got our 2 grease fittings on either side. So I'm just going to wipe this down and put some more gear lube in there. A couple of pumps in each one of these little grease teats. And we'll call that done for now. I'd say this old machine came a long way, and the only thing left to do really is to get that stuck hub off, which we're going to do at a later date. We also have a little bit of work to do on the barrels, a little bit of welding. We might want to pull off the scraper, clean it. We'll paint everything. We'll get everything nice. Might as well, right? Get rid of the rust and throw a quick coat of paint on it. That's going to be another episode, fellas. I do want to take it outside and give it one more run and show you guys. I've got the idle and we got the high RPM, and then I'm going to actually throw the fuel valve and let it run out on the carburetor. It is dripping a little bit. There is a O-ring on the high RPM adjustment, and so that's also another thing we can put on that list to do in the future. Probably a little bit more carburetor adjustment. It is an older carburetor we use, but it's a newer one. It's like a newer design, so it's not original type of equipment to this. We have that other head, and it got a little bit better compression. We might want to review that, right? A little bit more compression is a good thing. So I'm going to actually take a bit of the hardware and stuff and throw it in a bag. And I got the old belt over there. I can't afford to buy belts because I just had another hard drive die in the computer and it's screwing stuff up. I actually lost some footage from yesterday. $130. They're still having a problem shipping it. You know what? I have other things to do. I actually put a little bit more time into this than I really wanted to put, but I think it's worth it. We have a really good machine. Got everything lubricated. Everything is well lubed at this point, so we don't have to do anything there. If it snows, I'm going to try it out, even with these belts. I'm going to, you know, we might get a lot of snow. We might get a little bit of snow. A little bit of snow is probably perfect for this, in which case I'll get some footage. So let's go outside right now and just run it for a little bit, and that'll be the end of the show. I think the end of this video until next time I come around and fool around with it. It's nice to have an old machine like this, fellas. You know, that transmission in here is gorgeous. The bearings all seem to be good. There doesn't seem to be locked, like the auger blades don't seem to be locked up. Might want to pull all that apart in the future. Put a lot of lube in there, by the way, and a lot came out to the sides, and that's good as we spin it. As time goes forward, that'll be good for it. That'll help lube it up and stabilize it. And so when I go to take it apart, it won't fight me. I think, you know, what else am I going to say? I think the video itself I'll cover as much as I can on this video. And I will see you on the next one. Let's go outside and just give it a run before we get out. I'll see you there.